Good morning, you're welcome to the breakfast on Plus TV Africa. It's 7 o'clock and right now we'll be looking at several hot topics. Now, my name is Reme Paulson first, but our hot topics this morning are Atiku, Obi and others form movement to oust Tinubu. Much later in the show, we'll be discussing the fact that reps have approved emergency rule in Rivers State. We'll also be taking global stories that made it to the front pages of our national dailies as well as some top trending stories. But first, let me let you know that today is in fact Education Freedom Day. So for a lot of people, education might seem like a privilege because there are so many children in Nigeria at the moment that are out of school, and Nigeria has one of the most out of school children population in the world. So Education Freedom Day is a day that is, just used to raise awareness, to let people know that it's important that we educate our children. And also it is World Poetry Day. So if you love poetry, today is the day for you to show that love for poetry. Make some rhymes, just leave out and do some writing. Why not? All right, so let's move over to our quote of the day this morning. Don't worry about the pressure or the responsibility. Just live in it, have fun, and when everything seems to be going right, just stay humble and remember your family. And that's according to Roman Reigns. In fact, his real name is Laerty Joseph Anoa, better known as his ring name, Roman Reigns, who's an American professional wrestler and former football player. And he says this morning, don't worry about the pressure or the responsibility. Just live in it, have fun, and when everything seems to be going right, stay humble and remember your family. I think that is quite explanatory. And it's Friday, so we're letting you know that it's important for you to live a little. It's important for you to bask in the moment. Pressures of life, worries of life would always be there, but it is how you handle it. It's how you handle that responsibility of, in most cases, being an adult, right? And when everything, seems to be going left, just remember that I'm in this moment. I can seize the moment. I can determine what's going on in my head space. It is all about me right now, regardless of what the situation might be. And I would definitely find a solution. And when you find a solution, Roman is telling you this morning to remain humble, love your family, remember them, do things that are very wholesome for yourself, for your family, for your community. And that's the way to live life. Because most times if you, stay fixated on the worries of life, the pressures of life, at some point you might just give yourself a high blood pressure. And that's not something that you want to be hypertensive. Plus the issues that we're facing in the world, it's important that you take a deep breath, you allow yourself to bask in the moment, you say, I got this. And of course you have it, to be honest, you have it. You just have to figure out a way to ensure that everything is better for yourself, and it will be. It will be. All right, let's move over to our top trending stories. The first one says Nysc to spend 307.6 billion naira on corps members' allowances. The National Youth Service Corps, Nysc, may spend up to 307.6 billion naira on mobilizing and paying allowances to corps members. This amount is based on the increase in allowances from 33,000 naira to 77,000 naira per corps member, which was announced following the signing of the new minimum wage law in May 2024. The Nysc mobilizes between 1,200 to 1,500 corps members in 3 batches each year, totaling about 333,000 corps members annually. With the increased allowance of 77,000 naira per member, the total annual payment for the allowances will reach 307.6 billion naira. In the 2025 federal budget, 372.9 billion of the 430.7 billion naira allocated to the Nysc is earmarked for corps members' allowances. However, despite the announcement in September 2024, the new allowance rate has not yet been implemented, with the Nysc still waiting for the necessary cash backing to begin payments. 307 billion naira, that's a lot of money, but I mean, it's for Nysc. Now, what was the reason or why was NYSC formed in the first place? The NYSC obviously was formed because they wanted people to be more patriotic. They wanted unity between, the different states. And there are a lot of people that have never left their states. So most times what they do is they send you somewhere else as your PPA because you get to serve somewhere else. I mean, Nigeria is big, so you should be able to explore other places, which was great. But with insurgency, with insecurity, it's been a little bit dicey at the moment, and most people do not really go up north. A lot of people love to stay in the south, so it's either Lagos, Abuja, maybe Port Harcourt, that's Rivers, sometimes, and that's what we've seen. But we've still seen a lot of people going to university, and because having to do your NYSC is compulsory, in fact it is mandatory, especially before you get to age 30, I presume, a lot of people are having so many people who are coming out of school and they have to do their NYSC. And most times the sad part of this whole thing is even after they do the NYSC, they probably are not guaranteed the jobs that they require or that they deserve. But let's look at, NYSC itself. 77,000 Naira at the moment. But if we remember, there was Rai, the girl who spoke about the president and all the things that has been happening, and she called out the government, she called out NYSC as well, saying they've not started paying this amount, and 33,000 Naira is nothing. So let's break it down a little bit. Right now, they're not paying 77,000 Naira, but if they were, right, how much can 77,000 Naira really do for these people? So I'm coming to a new state. In this new state, I probably have to pay rent. That's the first thing. I need somewhere to stay. I have to live somewhere. And of course, I'm not going to be paying rent of 77,000 Naira or even 500,000 Naira, because most times, especially if you're living in Lagos, you're looking at ₦1 million or more for that rent. And then to my PPA, I'm obviously going to pay transportation. The cost of transportation is a lot. So before I feed, before I do other things, take care of myself, that's a whole lot of money. And I don't think 77,000 Naira would do that. Now, some people might say, oh, of course, your PPA is going to pay you. But most times from, reports, we've seen that this PPA, they don't even pay as much. So you're looking at some PPA paying as low as 30 to 50,000 Naira. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a PPA that will pay you 100,000 Naira, but that is quite rare, to be honest. So let's say your take home at the end of the day is 150,000 Naira. That is still quite little for anybody to be able to fend for themselves in Nigeria at the moment, because rent is a part of it. If maybe they were still staying in their parents' house or living with a relative, that's fine. But if they're going into a new city, they definitely have to pay rent, and rent obviously takes a chunk of that money, transportation as well. So before you know it, they're left with nothing. But if you accumulate all of these amounts, the 77,000 Naira, and for the amount of the influx of core members that goes in every year, that amounts to 307 billion. And I'm just wondering, that is a whole lot of money. And if you look at it, as a bulk amount, but if you look at it per core member, that is quite little. So what do we do? What are the, the solutions? A lot of people are calling for NYSC to be overhauled, or to find a way to ensure that maybe these people have like skill acquisition instead of the movement back and forth. A lot of people are just looking for other alternatives or other means. And I think that's what the government needs to start looking into. How can we make NYSC better? Even if we have to keep it, if we have to do it. If it's not meeting the purpose anymore, then why are we still doing it? But if we feel like it is still necessary as of today, then we need to find other means or other ways. You can actually put these people through work, right? Not just saying we're sending you to PPA. How about the government starts to create a product that is needed, a product that is essential, and these core members are able to ensure that they do it, or they produce it. And when they do that, the money that's coming in is revenue for the government. The NYSC core member is being paid. Everybody is happy. And they're not just being paid minute sums of money. They're being paid well. And they're able to say, okay, when I'm done with NYSC, I'm moving into the job market, and I had these skills. Now I know that when you go into the camp, because you go for like 3 weeks camp, there is the I've forgotten the name it used to be called, because when I was there as well, there is where you get to choose whatever skills you want to learn and all. But we've not really seen it as something that has, been really efficient in time, over time. We've not really seen it, be efficient for these people. So if we want to, look into that, that's something to take over and say, okay, how can we make this better and ensure that the government is able to make money off this, and the NYSC COM members are also able to, get good money as well from whatever project we're looking at doing. But yeah, so we're looking at 307 billion naira. It's quite a lot of money, but if you look at it per person, it's still not as much. We just need to find ways to generate revenue in Nigeria, to be honest, and hopefully they start to implement it, because as of today, like I speak, it's still 33,000 naira, which is very, very little. We're saying 77,000 naira is little. Imagine what 33,000 naira is. So hopefully they get to implement that and even look for ways to inject more money into that system if it's something that we're set on doing for the long haul. All right, another top trending story says Pdp and Adeleke reject APC's call for emergency rule in Osun State. The Osun State government and the ruling People's Democratic Party PDP have criticized the All Progressive Congress APC for calling on President Bola Tinubu to impose emergency rule in Osun. The APC's National Secretary, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, made the request after Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State. The PDP and Osun State officials, including Information Commissioner Kolakbo Alimi, strongly opposed the suggestion, calling it unlawful and politically motivated. The APC, led by Bashiru, argued that Osun Governor Ademola Adeleke's administration had committed constitutional breaches, including attempts to remove the chief judge and violence against APC member during the 2022 elections. However, the Osun PDP and state officials maintained that the situation in Osun was vastly different from Rivers, with no breakdown of governance or political instability. They accused the APC of attempting to seize power through undemocratic means, but the PDP and Osun state officials called for the rejection of the emergency rule proposal, describing it as an attempt by frustrated politicians to undermine the democratic process. They emphasized that legal disputes, particularly over local government control, should be resolved in court rather than through emergency measures. The conflict over local government control in Osun State is ongoing, but the state government has insisted that it was being managed appropriately without causing widespread unrest. Well, I guess emergency rule is the order of the day, and if that's what's in the news, that's what everybody wants to use. So you're seeing APC, PDP have their own little day in the sun at the moment in Osun State, and APC is saying, you know what, emergency rule. But to be honest, I don't think anybody would definitely want, military rule in their states. I mean, we've seen the case of Rivers, we've seen the crisis that has happened. Of course, the president had to make a decision, which has, already taken full effect at the moment. But there are so many people in the streets of Rivers that are crying about that. They're upset at the fact that the president had to make that decision of military rule in the state. So what are we saying? If we started with Rivers State, obviously we understand what's ongoing there. The crisis has been happening for over a year now. And then we move to Osun State and we say another military rule. Are we going to come to Lagos and say military rule as well? Because we know what we saw with Obasa, Obasa in Lagos State, and obviously the Lagos House of Assembly as well. So are we going to keep going to different states and say military rule? Do we want military rule to take over Nigeria? That's the first question. I don't think when there are issues, the first thing we should think about is military rule. If it can be resolved, why not? And like, the people of Osun State, the government of Osun State rather, and the PDP have said, I mean, we can go to court for this. The court still has jurisdiction over these things. So the court can make a declaration. Military rule is not just the thing that you throw around and say, oh, because you're not doing your job very well, or because you've done X, Y, Z, I think it's important that we put military rule here. It's almost like, the case of, the Bible, where there was obviously Solomon and the baby, and one woman is saying, oh, cut the child into half. The other woman is like, no, that's my, you don't use the negative thing just because it's not going your way, and you say, because it's not going my way, let's destroy it. Because it's not going my way, I don't want it at all, so nobody should have it. That's not how it should be. Instead, you should look for ways. There's APC, there's PDP, there's NNPP. There's so many political parties in Nigeria. I understand that you would have your differences. That's fine. But it's important that what you're doing is for the betterment of your people, the benefit of your people, things that would impact your people. If you're saying, I mean, I'm not saying military rule is so bad, because I don't think anybody's going to just take guns and start blazing or whatever. But if we've already tasted democracy, why are we not looking for ways to ensure that we're practicing democracy to its fullest, instead of reverting back to military rule that we've gone past? So it just wouldn't make sense to me. And I think Osun State, please put your house in order. We've seen what has happened in River State. You do not want to get there. So if you have to nip it in the bud at the moment, that's what you should be doing. So please fix up yourselves, put your house in order, and ensure that everything you do is for the benefit of the people of Osun State. All right, another top trending story says Dangote Refinery stops Naira sales, fuel prices rise. Dangote Petroleum Refinery has temporarily halted the sale of petroleum products in Naira after talks with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, over the Naira for crude agreement broke down. This decision has led to a jump in fuel prices at private depots, with petrol costs increasing from 850 Naira to 900 Naira per litre. Industry experts warn that the halt could put pressure on the foreign exchange market, as dealers will now need more dollars to purchase fuel. The suspension of Naira sales follow concerns about the NNPCL's forward sales of crude oil, which left the national oil company without enough supply for domestic refining. While Dangote Refinery insists that the decision is temporary, the halt has sparked a heated debate among stakeholders. Marketers fear that if the Naira for crude deal collapses, fuel prices will rise and the Naira will lose stability, urging the government to reconsider ending the agreement. Oil industry groups and retail outlet owners argue that the breakdown in talks could jeopardize Nigeria's efforts towards energy security and drive the country back to relying on imported refined products. As the situation remains uncertain, fuel prices at depots are rising, and experts warn that without a resolution, the cost of petrol could increase significantly, potentially reaching 1,000 Naira per litre. Just the other day, we were celebrating the fact that, we've seen the petrol price reduce at least to something that maybe not the best, but a little bit quite affordable compared to when we used to buy for over 1,000 Naira per litre. People could now buy for about 860 Naira, 880 Naira to 900, depends on where you're buying from. And so we were like, you know what, we hope that in the nearest future, the prices could crash enough for us to even buy petrol at 600 Naira per litre. But just a few days later, we're looking at petrol going up to about 900 Naira per litre. The honest truth is the people that are being affected here, the citizens. Whatever the deal is, I think the NNPCL should even be happy or should appreciate the fact that there is a refinery working in Nigeria, even though it's privately owned. But something is working, because what happened to our 4 refineries? We have the Warri Refinery, we have the Port Harcourt Refinery, 2 in Port Harcourt to be honest. We have the Kaduna Refinery, 4 refineries that are not working. I know they said, there were talks obviously for Port Harcourt Refinery to start production. Kaduna Refinery was to start production in December. We've still not heard anything from it. Warri Refinery, we heard that there was some produce from there, but even though some people said they were old stock and all of that. But my point is, there is zero or little production going on in the 4 refineries that we have as a nation. A whole country cannot refine its own products. And it's not just any product, a product that is the bloodline of the nation, a product that everybody depends on. So now you have a man. You can call him your knight in shining armor, you can call him your savior, whatever you want to call him. If he's your savior, why not? But he's been able to start up a refinery and look for a way to bring down the price, which is great, even though in a way it might seem like a monopoly. But we've seen him give marketers a run for their money, because now marketers have no other choice but to crash their own prices as well, because of course Nigerians need to be able to afford this product. Now there is a deal, which is sell me this crude in Naira. That way I can also sell this refined product, which is petrol, to your people in Naira as well. So we're not thinking of the exchange rates, how volatile that is, because today it's 1,500, tomorrow is 1,600, next tomorrow is 1,700, whatever, it can just come up, right? So instead of that fluctuations in the numbers, if we're selling, buying and selling in Naira, I'm buying from you in Naira, I'm selling to your people in Naira, win-win for everybody. And now you're not thinking of the people, of the country, because if you're halting that deal, people are going to get affected. So that means I'm moving into that petrol station, and if I planned that I was going to buy petrol for 860 Naira, guess what? I need to up my budget now. So it's not even stable. And of course, it's going to even crash the FX market, because everybody's looking for dollars at this point to be able to buy this fuel from Dangote before they would now sell to the people. The honest truth is, we need this product. In a way, Dangote has put himself out there that you need him, even almost more than he needs you. Because if you don't buy his product, there are other countries. There's Benin Republic, there's Togo, there is Niger, so many other countries, Cameroon, that are ready to buy this product. So at this point, if what is going to benefit your people, because you need to think of the greater good. What's going to benefit your people is having to sell to him in Naira. Why not? Because you know that your people are going to benefit from it. So whatever the case might be, even though they've said it's temporary, great. Can you halt it today? Can you ensure that you guys sit down on that table and make a decision, and we know where we're at? That's just all we're asking. Honestly, that's what we're asking for. All right. Our final top trending story says Naira appreciates against the dollar at official window. On March 19, 2025, the Naira appreciated by 0.16%, closing at 1,530.52 Naira per dollar from 1,532.93 Naira per dollar in the previous trading season. The currency fluctuated between 1,545 Naira per dollar and 1,500 Naira per dollar, indicating market movement. At the parallel market, the Naira remained stable at 1,585 Naira per dollar, causing a narrowing of the gap between official and parallel rates to around 3.07%. Experts suggest that recent stability in the Naira can be attributed to structural reforms and increased foreign exchange forex inflows. According to Tilewa Adebajo, CEO of CFG Advisory, the shift to a unified platform for currency transactions has contributed to the stability. The official market is seeing more overseas inflows, but the parallel market operators have not yet fully adapted to this new system. Despite some short-term gains, analysts caution that long-term stability would depend on consistent policies and continued forex inflows. Challenges remain, especially with the potential impact of weaker global oil prices. Declining oil prices and rising supply could pose risk to Nigeria's forex stability, which remains vulnerable to external market shifts. At the end of the day, what we need is our currency to be stable, to gain strength. I remember when the dollar was 120 Naira per dollar. That was probably just about 2010. So 15 years ago, yeah, it was about 120 Naira per dollar or even less. 5 years ago, the dollar was about 300 Naira. Yeah, you could get a dollar for about 300 Naira, but that's just 5 years ago. How do we go from 300 Naira to 1,500 Naira to even 1,900 Naira, because that's what happened last year. So in 4 years, there was that jump. 5 years, we're saying, oh, the Naira is stable, but the Naira is stable at 1,500, 1,585, thereabout, fluctuating in between those numbers. But 5 years ago, it was better. So what do we need to do to get back there? I don't know if, we'll ever get back to maybe 500 Naira per dollar. I hope we do. But at the end of the day, that's what the people want. And whatever policies you need to put in place, that's what we should be looking at. I don't think there should be a reason why anybody, because imagine how businesses are struggling right now. They have to exchange, their monies for this dollar. And why are we using more than 1,000 Naira or more than 800 Naira for the exchange? What is the true worth of the Naira? That's even the question we should be asking. What is our money worth? Because I don't think the Naira should be worth about 1,500 Naira per dollar. And whatever we need to do to ensure that we bring that number down, that's what we should be looking at right now. Gain more revenue, export more, while we're not really putting our mind into agriculture to ensure that we're planting enough, harvesting enough, not just for the country, not just for the people, but to even send out to other countries. We have fertile lands. Most countries abroad, they do not have the weather to sustain the crops. We do. We have good weather here, fertile lands. Why are we not really pushing into that to ensure that we're able? Because to be honest, the crude oil market is already crashing. People are already looking for alternative sources. People are looking for clean energy. We're still dependent on crude at the moment, and that's how we make our money. We need to start to move. You need to know when to pivot, to be honest, because you're like, I know this is bringing money in right now, but in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, is this still going to be bringing as much money as I would expect? No. So what do? I move into something else that I know would be sustainable for me. That's what we need to do in Nigeria, because if we want to see our currency appreciate, we need to pivot. That's the honest truth. I know that we're saying, oh, yes, it has appreciated to 1,500 and whatever it is. I don't think that's worth celebrating, to be honest, because we can do better. We've seen better in the past. We can get back there. There was a time where even the Naira was more than the dollar, right? You have to use about 0 point whatever per dollar. But look at where we are now. Anyways, we're not saying you have to go back to the 80s or the 90s. Things have changed. Everybody knows inflation is everywhere in the world. We understand it, we get it. But whatever we can do to ensure that our currency is stable, especially for businesses, especially for people who are doing this exchange, please, because everybody gets affected. You're going to the market and you're trying to buy gari or rice, for instance, and they tell you, oh, it's dollar, and you're wondering, gari is produced here. We have local rice as well. How come it's dollar? But those people, they need to feed, they need to pay rent, they need to transport themselves to and fro. They need to do other things. They need to put clothes on their back. Some clothes are not being manufactured here. They have so many things that they get that are not manufactured here. So of course, because they're spending so much, their own produce is going to increase in price as well. So everybody would feel the brunt of it. If we need to bring that number down to ensure that we can now afford the dollar in a more sustainable way for a period of time, that's what we should be looking at, and I hope we can get there. All right, that's it for our top trending stories. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll be looking at the stories that made it to the front pages of our national dailies. So please stay with us.